The Kansas City Chiefs locker room was drowning in a silence that cut like a blade. Jake Morrison, the 22-year-old rookie who'd barely completed 3 months with the team, had never seen that place so empty, so heavy with tension. It was Tuesday, 11 p.m., and he'd only come back to grab his forgotten cleat. But what Jake found in Travis Kelce's locker that night would change everything the world thought about the Kansas City Chiefs' biggest star. For 2 years, only 3 people knew this secret. Today, that number would become million. The consequences would be devastating. Jake stood paralyzed, staring at something that made his hands shake uncontrollably. Something that revealed Travis Kelce, the NFL's most beloved player, was living a lie. Not the kind of lie that destroys careers, but the kind that changes how you see humanity itself. The rookie had 30 seconds to decide: walk away, pretend he saw nothing, or stay and uncover a truth so powerful it would shake the NFL to its foundation. He chose to stay. And what happened next? Well, that's when everything started falling apart spectacularly. This is the story Travis Kelce never wanted you to know. And when you discover what Jake found in that locker, you'll never see football the same way again. Jake's flashlight beam cut through the darkness as he approached his locker. The Arrowhead Stadium felt different at night, like a sleeping giant holding its breath. He'd been kicking himself all evening for forgetting his custom, the ones his grandmother had saved months to buy him. As he fumbled with his combination lock, a soft sound made him freeze. It was coming from 3 lockers down, Travis Kelce's locker. The sound was crying? Jake's heart hammered against his ribs. Travis Kelce didn't cry. The man was a machine, a legend who'd caught passes in the Super Bowl with a separated shoulder and never showed an ounce of pain. Moving closer, Jake realized Kelce's locker was slightly open, and what he saw inside made his world tilt sideways. Hundreds of letters, thousands maybe, all addressed to Travis Kelce, but not fan mail. These were different. Handwritten on hospital letterheads, children's drawings attached, medical bills paper-clipped to desperate pleas for help. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part was seeing Travis Kelce, the multi-millionaire NFL superstar, sitting on the floor of his locker, methodically writing checks. Check after check after check, each one for thousands of dollars. Jake watched in stunned silence as Kelce opened another letter, this one from a mother in Detroit, whose son needed surgery they couldn't afford. Without hesitation, Kelce wrote another check for $15,000. Then another letter, another check, $8,000 this time. Then another, $22,000. Jake counted 12 checks before his phone buzzes loudly in his pocket. Kelce's head snapped up, his eyes locking with Jake's through the gap in the locker. For a moment, neither man moved. The NFL superstar and the rookie stared at each other across a secret that could change everything. "How long have you been standing there?" Kelce's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of a man whose carefully guarded world had just been exposed. Jake's mouth went dry, because what he'd witnessed wasn't just charity. It was something far more complex and potentially dangerous than either of them realized. "I asked you a question, rookie." Kelce's voice hardened as he slowly stood up, the letters scattered around him like evidence at a crime scene. Jake's hands shook as he held up his phone. I just came for my cleats. I didn't see anything." But they both knew that was a lie. Kelce studied Jake's face for what felt like an eternity. The silence stretched between them until it became unbearable. Finally, Kelce sighed and gestured to the mess of letters around his feet. "You want to know what this is?" Jake nodded, unable to find his voice. "This is every medical bill, every desperate letter, every plea for help that gets sent to me. Not through my agent, not through the team, people who somehow track down my personal address and send me their last hope." Kelce picked up one of the letters, his hands surprisingly gentle. "This one's from a single mom in Kansas City. Her daughter has leukemia. Insurance won't cover the experimental treatment. She needs $180,000. He held up the check he'd been writing. "So, I give it to her." Jake's eyes widened. "All of them? You help all of them?" "Every single one I can verify." Kelce's voice cracked slightly. "Do you know what that costs me per month? Take a guess." Jake shook his head. "Last month it was $1.2 million. This month it's already at $800,000, and we're only halfway through." The rookie's legs felt weak. That's most of your salary." It's all of my salary, Kelce corrected. I live off endorsement money. Every dollar I earn playing football goes to this. Jake stared at the mountain of letters, his mind reeling. Why? Why keep it secret? Kelce's expression darkened. Because the moment this gets out, it becomes a circus. The NFL will want to control it, turn it into a PR campaign. The media will scrutinize every dollar, and the people who really need help, they'll get lost in the noise. But as Kelce spoke, Jake noticed something that made his blood run cold. Over Kelce's shoulder, partially hidden behind hanging jersey, was another person. Someone had been watching them both, and now that person was slowly backing away, phone in hand, a smile spreading across their face like they'd just won the lottery. "Travis," Jake whispered, his voice urgent. "We're not alone." Kelce spun around just in time to see Marcus Reed, the team's veteran linebacker, slipping behind a row of lockers with his phone held high like a trophy. The 32-year-old had been with the Chiefs for 8 seasons, but everyone knew his career was hanging by a thread. 3 knee surgeries, declining performance, and whispers about gambling debts had made him desperate. "Reed!" Kelce shouted, his voice echoing through the empty locker room, but the sound of hurried footsteps told them Marcus was already moving fast toward the exit. Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "How much do you think he got?" Kelce was frantically shoving letters back into his locker, his hands shaking slightly. "Enough. Way more than enough." He slammed the locker door shut, the metallic clang reverberating through the silence. "You don't understand what just happened here." "Maybe he won't use it," Jake said weakly, knowing even as he spoke that it was wishful thinking. "Won't use it?" Kelce's laugh was sharp and bitter. "Marcus Reed is drowning in debt. His house went into foreclosure last month. His wife moved back to her mother's place in Ohio. The man has nothing left to lose and everything to gain." Kelce leaned against his locker, suddenly looking older than his 34 years. "A story like this? TMZ would pay him $500,000 just for the footage. ESPN would double that for exclusive rights to the full story." Jake's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He showed the screen to Kelce before opening the message. "Parking lot behind the stadium. 5 minutes. Come alone, or this goes live on every social media platform simultaneously." "He's not just selling a story," Kelce said, reading over Jake's shoulder. "He's going straight to blackmail." "How much could he possibly want?" Jake asked, though he was starting to understand the magnitude of what Marcus had stumbled on. Kelce's expression went cold, and when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of someone who'd been calculating worst-case scenarios for years. "Marcus Reed owes approximately $2.3 million to bookies in Vegas and Kansas City. His contract expires in 6 weeks, and no team is going to sign a 32-year-old linebacker with bad knees and worse judgment." Jake felt like the walls were closing in. "What if we just let him expose it? I mean, what you're doing is incredible. People would understand." "No. They absolutely would not." Kelce's voice cut like ice. "Because you still don't know the whole story." Jake's stomach dropped to his shoe. "What whole story?" Kelce hesitated, and in that brief pause, Jake saw something that terrified him more than anything else that night. Fear, real, bone-deep fear from a man who faced 300-pound defensive linemen for a living without flinching. Jake's phone buzzed again. 4 minutes. Don't test me." "Travis, what aren't you telling me?" Kelce looked directly at Jake, and his next words came out barely above a whisper. "The money I'm giving away, it's not just my salary." Jake felt the world tilt sideways. "What do you mean?" "The NFL has a strict salary cap, Jake. Teams can't spend more than $224 million on player salary. But what if I told you there was a way around that? What if I told you the Chiefs have been making charitable contributions that somehow find their way into my account?" The rookie's mouth went dry. That's salary cap circumvention. That's federal fraud." "Exact." Kelce's voice was hollow. "And if Marcus exposes my charity work, federal investigators will start digging into every penny I've ever touched. They'll find the extra payments from the team. The Chiefs will lose draft picks, face massive fines, and possibly lose their franchise entirely." Another buzz. 3 minutes. I'm getting impatient. Jake stared at the message, his mind racing. "So, we're not just talking about exposing your charity work. We're talking about bringing down the entire Kansas City Chiefs organization." 17 employees would lose their jobs immediately, Kelce said quietly. "The team would face federal investigation. Every contract, every transaction, Every financial decision from the past 3 years would be scrutinized. And the families you're helping? The federal government freezes all accounts pending investigation. That process takes 2 to 3 years minimum. 37 families currently receiving treatment funding cut off immediately. Jake felt sick, so Marcus has us completely trapped. Worse than trapped, Kelce said, grabbing his keys from his locker. Because I know Marcus Reed. He's not thinking about consequences or collateral damage. He's thinking about the men who break kneecaps when gambling debts go unpaid. The phone buzzed one final time. 2 minutes. Then I go live. Kelce looked at Jake with eyes that held years of carefully guarded secrets. There's something else you need to know before we walk out there. What now? The reason I do all this, the reason I risk everything. Kelce's voice caught slightly. I wasn't always the guy writing checks to help people. 5 years ago, I was the guy who needed help, and someone gave it to me when I had nowhere else to turn. Jake waited, sensing there was more. My brother Daniel died of cancer when he was 12. Our family went bankrupt trying to save him. Lost our house, our car, everything. I've been sending money to families like mine ever since, because I know what it feels like to watch someone you love die while you count pennies. The weight of that revelation settled between them as they walked toward what might be the end of everything Kelce had built. So, now you know, Kelce said, as they reached the exit. We're not just facing blackmail. We're facing the complete destruction of everything I've worked for, and the death sentence for kids whose only crime was getting sick in families that can't afford to save them. Outside, the parking lot waited like a courtroom where Marcus Reed held all the evidence, and the verdict could destroy lives on both sides of the equation. The stadium parking lot felt like a scene from a crime thriller. Overhead lights cast harsh shadows between the rows of empty cars, and the late October wind carried the smell of autumn and impending rain. Jake's heart hammered against his ribs as he and Travis approached Marcus Reed's beaten Toyota Camry, a car that looked like it had seen better decades, not just better days. Marcus leaned against the driver's side door, phone in hand, looking like a man who'd just found the winning lottery ticket in someone else's jacket. His usually nervous demeanor had been replaced by something Jake had never seen before: cold confidence. "Gentlemen," Marcus called out as they approached, his voice carrying across the empty lot. "Hell of a night for life-changing conversation, wouldn't you say?" Kelce stopped exactly 15 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to run if needed. "Cut to the chase, Marcus. What's your price?" "Always straight to business." "That's what I always respected about you, Travis." "Oh." Marcus held up his phone, and Jake could see the video paused on the screen. 12 minutes, 43 seconds of pure gold. You explaining your charity operation, writing those checks, and the absolute cherry on top, you admitting the Chiefs have been funneling money around salary cap restrictions. Jake felt his knees go. Marcus had everything. "Here's how I see your situation," Marcus continued, starting to pace like a caged animal. "You've got exactly 2 options, and both of them involve me getting what I need." A semi-truck rumbled past on the highway beyond the stadium, its headlights briefly illuminating the 3 men locked in this midnight standoff. "Option 1, Marcus said, holding up his index finger. "I upload this footage to every sports network, social media platform, and news outlet simultaneously. I become the whistleblower who exposed the biggest scandal in NFL history. Conservative estimate? ESPN pays me $750,000 for exclusive commentary rights. Add in book deals, interview circuit, maybe a Netflix documentary. I'm looking at $3 million minimum. And option 2? Kelce's voice was steady, but Jake could see a muscle twitching in his jaw. Marcus's smile widened, revealing teeth that hadn't seen a dentist in years. "You transfer $2.5 million to my account before the sun comes up. I delete every frame of this footage, retire quietly due to recurring injury, and disappear to somewhere tropical where gambling debts can't follow me." Jake couldn't stay silent. "You're going to destroy a man who gives his entire salary to help dying children? For money? Don't you dare preach to me about morality, rookie," Marcus snapped, whirling to face Jake with eyes that held years of accumulated desperation. "You think St. Travis here is some kind of hero? He's been systematically breaking federal salary cap laws for 3 years. He's committing fraud on a massive scale. To save lives," Jake shot back. "To break the law. Marcus corrected. "And when this comes out, it won't just be Travis who goes down. The entire Chiefs organization will burn. Coaches, trainers, equipment staff, hundreds of people will lose their jobs because your boy here couldn't follow the rule." That's when Travis Kelce did something that shocked both men. He laughed, not bitterly, not nervously, but with genuine amusement that echoed off the concrete around them. "You want to know the really funny part about all this, Marcus?" Kelce said, pulling his phone from his pocket. "You recorded everything except the one detail that actually mattered." Marcus's confidence flickered for the first time. "What the hell are you talking about?" Kelce opened his banking app and turned the screen toward both men. In the harsh light of the parking lot lamps, the numbers were clearly visible. Account balance, $847. "That's it," Kelce said quietly. "That's every penny I have to my name." Marcus stared at the screen like the numbers might rearrange themselves into something that made sense. "That's impossible. You make $14 million a year." "You're absolutely right," Kelce nodded. "But here's what you missed while you were busy recording your retirement fund." He swiped to show recent transactions. Hundreds of outgoing payments to hospitals, medical centers, treatment facilities across the country. "The Chiefs aren't paying me extra money, Marcus. They're paying my charity expenses directly. Every dollar over the salary cap goes straight to verified medical bills for families who have nowhere else to turn." Jake felt his understanding shift completely. "So you're not breaking the law for personal gain?" "I'm breaking it to keep children alive," Kelce finished. "The NFL doesn't just restrict player salaries. They also limit how much teams can contribute to charitable causes. We found a loophole, and we've been using it to save lives that the system would otherwise let die." Marcus stood frozen, his phone suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. "So here's what happens when your footage goes public," Kelce continued, stepping closer. "The NFL doesn't just investigate me. They immediately freeze all charitable accounts pending federal review. That process takes 18 to 24 months minimum." The wind picked up, sending a fast food wrapper skittering across the asphalt between them. "There's a 9-year-old boy in Detroit getting experimental leukemia treatment that costs $18,000 per session," Kelce said, his voice growing quieter but more intense. "His name is Michael Chen. Without that funding, he has maybe 2 weeks before his parents have to choose between their house and their son's life." Marcus's hand began to shake almost imperceptibly. "There's a teenager in New Mexico who needs emergency spinal surgery after a car accident. The operation is scheduled for Friday morning. Total cost, $340,000. Jake watched Marcus's face as the reality of what he was threatening began to sink in. "So, go ahead," Kelce said, gesturing toward the phone. "Upload that footage. Make your million. Become famous for 15 minutes. But understand exactly what you're choosing. You're not just destroying my career. You're signing death warrants for children whose only crime was getting sick in families that couldn't afford to save them." For a long moment, the only sounds were the distant hum of highway traffic and the buzz of the parking lot lights overhead. Marcus Reed stared at his phone, and Jake could see the internal war playing out across his features. Desperation, fighting against whatever conscience he had left. But then, his phone started buzzing with incoming messages, and Jake watched all color drain from Marcus's face as he read them. "Payment overdue. Interest compounding. Final notice. Pay tonight, or consequences begin tomorrow. We know where your ex-wife works. Pretty lady." "Jesus Christ," Marcus whispered, his voice breaking. "I don't have a choice here. I'm sorry, Travis. I'm really, truly sorry. But these people will kill me. They'll hurt people I care about if I don't pay them." He looked up with eyes full of genuine terror. "You've got exactly 60 seconds to start that transfer, or I upload everything and pray the media money comes through before they find me." Marcus held up his phone, finger hovering over the upload button, and Jake realized they were about to watch everything Travis had built crumble into dust, along with the lives depending on it. That's when Jake Morrison remembered something that changed everything. "Wait," Jake said, stepping between Marcus and his phone with both hands raised. "Marcus, before you destroy everything, you need to understand exactly who you're really threatening here." Marcus kept his finger poised over the upload button, but something in Jake's voice made him pause. "I don't care if he's—" "You should care," Jake interrupted, his voice carrying an urgency that cut through the night air. "Because 3 weeks ago, you told me about your nephew Tommy. Remember that conversation? Marcus's expression shifted slightly. What does Tommy have to do with anything? You said he was in the hospital in St. Louis. 7 years old. Some kind of heart problem that insurance wouldn't cover. Stressed about it because your sister couldn't afford the surgery. Confusion replaced some of the desperation in Marcus's eyes. Yeah, so? Jake pulled out his phone and showed Marcus a photo, a screenshot of a hospital payment confirmation. Children's Hospital St. Louis. Patient, Thomas Reed. Surgery, pediatric cardiac valve replacement. Amount paid, $127,000. Payment source, anonymous charitable donation. Marcus stared at the screen, his hand with the phone slowly lowering. How did you? I've been tracking Travis's donation for weeks, Jake said quietly. Learning the system, understanding how it works. Tommy Reed was patient number 1,147 that Travis has helped in the last 3 years. The phone slipped from Marcus's finger, clattering onto the asphalt. Travis saved your nephew's life, Jake continued. The surgery that happened 2 weeks ago? The one that let Tommy go home healthy? Travis paid for it. You've been walking around the locker room planning to blackmail the man who's the reason your nephew is alive. Marcus stood motionless, staring at the payment confirmation on Jake's phone. That's Tommy's surgery was covered by an anonymous donor. We never knew who. Now you, Kelce said quietly. And he wasn't the first member of your family I've helped. Marcus looked up sharply. What? Your mother's cancer treatments 2 years ago, Kelce said. The experimental therapy that wasn't covered by Medicare? The $45,000 your family couldn't come up with? Marcus's legs seemed to give out slightly. He leaned heavily against his car. That was you too. Your sister reached out through the hospital's financial aid office. She sent a letter explaining the situation. I had my people verify the details and cover the cost. Cheat. Jake watched Marcus's face cycle through shock, understanding, and finally, crushing guilt. You've been planning to destroy the man who saved your mother's life and your nephew's life, Jake said, for gambling money. Marcus picked up his phone with shaking hand. For a moment, Jake thought he might still upload the video out of pure desperation. Instead, Marcus opened the file and, with deliberate precision, deleted every second of footage. Keep your money, Marcus said quietly, his voice thick with shame. I can't. I won't do this. Not to you. Not after. Marcus, Kelce said gently, you're still in danger from these people. Deleting the video doesn't solve your debt problem. I know. Marcus nodded, tears streaming down his face. But maybe it's time I face the consequences of my choices instead of dragging good people down with me. Maybe I deserve whatever's coming. Nobody deserves to be killed over money, Jake said firmly. The kid's right, Kelce agreed, and I meant what I said. I can liquidate my assets and get you the money you need. Marcus shook his head violently. Absolutely not. I won't let you destroy your life to save mine. Not after what you've already done for my family. The three men stood in the parking lot, the immediate crisis resolved, but the underlying problem still looming like a storm cloud. There might be another way, Jake said suddenly. Marcus, you said these people want their money. What if we could guarantee them payment? Just not all at once. They don't do payment plans, Marcus said bitterly. This isn't a credit card company. No, but they are businessmen, Jake continued, his mind racing. What if we could offer them something more valuable than money? Both men stared at Jake like he'd lost his mind. Information, Jake said, his voice gaining confidence as the idea took shape. Marcus, think about it. You've been in deep with these people for what? 3 years? You know their names, their faces, how they operate, where they meet, how they launder money through fake businesses. Marcus's eyes widened as understanding dawned. You're talking about me becoming a federal informant. I'm talking about you helping shut down the people who prey on desperate athletes like you, Jake said, stepping closer. These aren't just bookies, Marcus. They're organized criminals who target professional athletes specifically because they know we have money and ego problems. Kelce nodded slowly, his mind clearly working through the implication. It's not crazy, Marcus. The federal government has been trying to crack down on illegal sports betting operations for years. They just can't get inside access. But it's dangerous hell, Marcus said, his voice shaking. If they find out I'm talking to the feds, they won't just kill me. They'll make it slow. They'll hurt my family first to send a message. They're already planning to hurt you and your family, Jake pointed out. Your ex-wife, your sister, your nephew Tommy. You think they're going to just forget about $2, $3 million because you ask nicely? At least this way, you're fighting back. Instead of just running scared, Marcus began pacing in small circles beside his car, his mind racing through possibilities and consequences. "You're asking me to bet my life, the federal government protecting me." "I'm asking you to bet your life on something other than desperation," Kelce said quietly. "Marcus, I've seen what these people do to athletes. They don't just take your money. They destroy your soul piece by piece until you're willing to blackmail the people who saved your family's lives." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He stopped pacing and leaned against his car, the weight of what he'd almost done crushing down on him. "How would it even work?" Marcus asked after a long silence. "I can't just call the FBI and say, 'Hey, I want to be a snitch.'" Jake pulled out his phone. "My uncle is a federal prosecutor in Chicago. He specializes in organized crime. One phone call, and by tomorrow morning you could be sitting in a secure federal facility planning the takedown of the entire network." "And then what? Witness protection? New identity? Never see my family again?" "Not necessarily," Kelce said. "If you help them build a strong enough case, if you're valuable, they can protect you without making you disappear. New location, new start, but still your life." Marcus was quiet for several minutes, staring at his phone where the threatening messages continued to arrive every few seconds. Finally, he looked up at both men. "You really think the FBI would be interested in what I know?" "Marcus," Kelce said carefully, "you're an 8-year NFL veteran with detailed knowledge of a multi-million-dollar illegal gambling operation that spans multiple states. You know their money laundering method, their enforcement tactic, their client list. You're probably the most valuable potential informant they could ask for." Marcus laughed, but there was no humor, only the bitter recognition of irony. "From trying to blackmail the man who saved my family to becoming a federal informant in one night. Hell of a character arc." He was quiet for another moment, then pulled out his phone and began deleting the threatening messages one by one. "You know what? Screw these people. They turned me into someone I don't recognize, someone who was willing to destroy children's lives for money." Marcus looked directly at Travis. "Make that call to your uncle. It's time these bastards learned what happens when they mess with the wrong athlete." Marcus Reed walked down the courthouse steps in Kansas City, flanked by 2 FBI agents. The media was waiting, but the questions weren't about scandal. They were about courage. His testimony had led to the arrest of 23 people involved in illegal sports betting operations across 5 states. The FBI had seized $18 million in assets and identified over 200 professional athletes who had been targeted by the organization. "Mr. Reed," a reporter called out, "how does it feel to be responsible for the biggest sports gambling bust in federal history?" Marcus paused, considering his answer. 3 months ago, he would have been focused only on himself. Now, he thought about the other athletes who would never face what he'd faced. "It feels like I finally did something worth doing," he said simply. The federal reward money had cleared his debts and provided a fresh start. Marcus was enrolled in gambling addiction treatment and working with the NFL Players Association to educate rookie athletes about predatory gambling operations. Travis Kelce's charitable work had expanded under legal protection. The FBI investigation provided cover for restructuring his donations through the Champions for Children Foundation, operating with full transparency while maintaining the same mission of covering medical expenses for families in crisis. Jake Morrison kept the secret, even when reporters tried to piece together how the investigation started. He served as liaison between Travis and the families they helped, ensuring the new systems protected everyone involved. Every month, Marcus sent Travis a photo. His nephew Tommy, healthy and thriving, playing in his backyard in St. Louis. Each photo carried the same handwritten message: "Thank you for saving all of us. T, Mom, and me too." On the anniversary of that parking lot confrontation, the 3 men met for dinner at a quiet Kansas City restaurant. No cameras, no interviews, just 3 people whose lives had been changed by 30 seconds of moral courage. "You know what's strange?" Marcus said. "I'm happier now than I've been in years. Even with all the stress, I sleep better at night." "That's what happens when you stop running from yourself," Travis said quietly. Jake raised his glass. "To second chances, to the courage to take them," Travis added. "And to the people who help you find that courage." Marcus, the greatest secret in the NFL hadn't been about scandal or corruption. It had been about a man who understood that true strength isn't measured in touchdowns, but in the lives you lift up when nobody's watching. Sometimes the most important victories happen in empty parking lots at midnight, where desperate choices meet unexpected grace. And the difference between destruction and redemption can be measured in 30 seconds of moral courage.